Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. This is episode 2 of the Diverse Places revision series over here on my channel. Today we're going to be looking at the UK's changing population structure, and as I said, this is episode 2, so I'll link the playlist up here. There's actually only one other episode in it so far, but you can follow it along. I upload one of these every single week, Monday at 4:30 p.m, and I have actually done a load of other series of geography A-level revision, so you can go find them on my channel. I hope they're useful for you. Yeah, please do subscribe down below. As I said, I upload one of these every single week, and let's just get straight into this. Looking beyond the headlines. In December 2013, the Daily Express reported that England was Europe's most overcrowded country, 4 times more densely populated than France. The Daily Express has already become known for its anti-immigration stance, so its message was clear. The newspaper's readers seemed to be encouraged to believe that England was full. It is important to note that the Daily Express was talking about England, not the UK. England certainly has some areas that are very densely populated. London, for example, has 5,500 people for every square kilometre. But if you divide the whole population of the whole of the UK, 65 million in 2015, by its area, 243,610 kilometres squared, that gives a much lower average population density of 267 people per kilometre squared. In world ratings, that makes the UK the 42nd most densely populated country. By comparison, India is 21st, with 426 per kilometre squared, and Bangladesh is 8th, with 1,218 per kilometre squared. There are 2 important factors to note when thinking about the Daily Express report. England is more densely populated than the rest of the UK. It has 413 people per square kilometre, compared to Wales, which has 149, Northern Ireland 135, and Scotland 68. Perhaps that's why the Daily Express deliberately chose to refer to England and not the UK as a whole. Urban areas, that is, settlements over 10,000 people, account for 89% of the country's population, but only 7% of its area. So 93% of the UK is not urban, and therefore is rather less crowded. The population is growing. The UK as a whole has a rapidly increasing population. Population has grown steadily since 1965, but there has also been a faster rate of growth since 2000, particularly in major cities like London, Cardiff and Manchester. This represents a challenge for planners who have to decide where the extra people will live and what resources they will need. Schools, hospitals, GP surgeries, workplaces, public transport and infrastructure, as well as the above population densities between different regions within the UK. There are also significant regional differences in population growth within England. In 2012, the Office for National Statistics, ONS, projected the population growth for 9 English economic regions between 2012 and 2022. The 10 English areas with the slowest projected population growth were all in the northeast or northwest regions. Some areas are even expected to decline, such as the population in Barrow-in-Furness is actually expected to fall by 2% by 2022. Its naval shipyards no longer provide as much construction work as they once did. The fastest growing population. London's overall population is predicted to grow by 13% by 2022, the east of England by 9%, and the south east by 8%, compared to England's average population growth of 7%. 8 of the 10 fastest growing areas in England are London boroughs, such as Tower Hamlets, which has the highest population growth of 22%. The reasons for regional differences in population growth can be divided up into economic, demographic and social. Economic. London's high population growth rate has resulted from its expanding knowledge economy, which has led to an influx of highly qualified workers and their families. Meanwhile, by comparison, in the northeast, a slower population growth rate has resulted from the continued collapse of its traditional industries: coal mining, steel manufacture, engineering and shipbuilding, which has led many workers to leave the region with their families to find work elsewhere. Demographic. London's booming economy has led to rapid internal migration within the UK, particularly of young graduates and international migration from overseas. Social. A longer average life expectancy caused by the falling mortality rates amongst those over 65 means that the UK's population as a whole is now living much longer. Falling mortality rates, due to increased cancer survival, and improved care of the elderly have resulted in increasing life expectancy, especially in London, the North East, North West and Midlands. In London, male life expectancy rose from 73.3 in 1993 to 80 in 2013. Population structure and dynamics. As well as differences in growth rate, the UK's population also varies in density and structure by age and sex. There are two extremes in London, Newham and Kingston upon Thames. Both are typical of the parts of London which they are located, and of most of large UK cities. Inner London. This picture shows the age-sex structure of Newham, an East London borough. Not every London borough has a typical male majority like this, but the age structure shown is typical of every inner London borough, dominated by 21 to 40-year-olds. Newham is easily accessible for both work and leisure, only 10 minutes from London's financial centre and 15 minutes from the West End clubs and theatres. Planning has resulted in the regeneration of the London Docklands and the Lee Valley, the area of the 2012 Olympic Park. Since the collapse of London's original port facilities and traditional industries in Newham, planners have now used the resulting derelict land for housing expansion. With so much new housing between 2001 and 2011, Newham's population was the fastest growing in the UK by 25%. This population growth came from two major sources. Natural increase. Since 2000, Newham has had the UK's highest general fertility rate, and internal migration of mainly university students and young graduates to work in the city's knowledge economy. Since 2000, the international migration rate has also increased. Between 2001 and 2011, Newham's non-British population grew by 72,285. By 2011, the borough had 165,424 foreign-born residents, 55% of its population. Having arrived and settled in the area, many of these migrants then married and began having children, hence Newham's general high fertility rate. Outer London. This picture shows the population details for Kingston upon Thames, an outer suburb in southwest London. Kingston is one of London's wealthiest boroughs, with a large number of higher income couples who move there to raise families. It's still very accessible, with 12 trains per hour for the 30-minute journey into central London, but housing there is expensive and much of the land is protected parkland. At its outer edge, planning for further growth is restricted by London's green belt, protected to prevent urban sprawl. Unlike Newham, Kingston upon Thames is dominated by a UK-born population. Overseas-born migrants constitute only 20% of the population, with the three biggest sources being India, Poland and Ireland. Beyond the city. Away from cities, Britain's population is becoming increasingly rural. The term rural and urban are not absolutes. It's hard to define where urban areas begin or end, or where rural areas become remote rural, such as the Scottish Highlands. Geographer Paul Cloke devised a model in the 1970s to show the rural-urban continuum to represent this spectrum. Rural-urban fringe. At the outer edge of most cities is a rural-urban fringe, a blurred boundary between countryside and city. Urban areas expand and absorb what was once open countryside, by a process of urban sprawl. Historically, railways and roads determined which places would grow. Easily accessible villages surrounding cities became suburbanised, as planners approved the buildings of housing estates to form dormitory suburbs, home for commuters. These expanded settlements have gradually adopted urban functions, with schools, shops and health and leisure facilities. And the travel distance from this city increases. The suburbanised settlements gradually give way to places that are more remote and less accessible to the city, and beyond them are more sparsely populated rural areas. Mixed rural areas, North Yorkshire. North Yorkshire is predominantly a rural county, although it has all of the components of the rural-urban continuum. It contains remote upland areas of the Pennines and the North Yorkshire moors, both of which are losing population, particularly younger people. The county's population is also older than that of London. Planners there face the challenge of trying to encourage new employment and housing. North Yorkshire contains smaller towns and cities such as Harrogate and York, coastal resorts such as Scarborough, and a mix of towns and villages in between. These areas, unlike the remote upland areas, are increasing in population, due mainly to internal migration from those seeking country living, including newly retired people, especially in accessible rural and coastal locations. International migration is small, with less than 5% of the population born outside the UK. It's also an ageing population, as mortality rates fall. Remote rural areas. Highland, Scotland. At the UK's extremities lie sparsely populated remote rural areas, such as the Highland County. The UK's largest county, it has one small city, Inverness, population of 62,000, but the majority of Highland is sparsely populated, with villages, remote hamlets and farms far away from any neighbours. Accessibility to the rest of the UK is a problem apart from Inverness Airport. The county's roads often meander around mountains and lochs, and winter storms and snow make it difficult to commute to other Scottish cities. Its economy is largely based on tourism and farming, with remote small farms or crofts. Large numbers of agricultural jobs have been lost in recent decades. However, Highland Council won EU funding to install super-fast broadband, thus reducing the region's isolation. And there is potential for renewable energy industries, especially wave and tidal. The county's population is now increasing rapidly due to internal migration, as more retired people and families seek a rural lifestyle, but most growth is still seen in the towns. The population of Inverness grew by 17.2% between 2003 and 2013. However, there is still relatively little international migration. Like North Yorkshire, Highland's population is also ageing as mortality rates fall. And that is the end of the second episode of the Diverse Places Revision series. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you learned something. Please do subscribe down below, and I will see you same time, same place next week for the next episode of this series. So yeah, thank you so much and see you then. Bye guys.